some nice mics though.
Yeah, they're dynamic, but that's you said which kind did you say would be better for this? It would be the not dynamic, but
I don't remember the choices you gave me.
there's like dynamic and something else. I forget what the other one is.
Usually it's like I said, the one I have, you can switch the settings.
Yeah.
Or you can basically put it on like an orchestra mode, so you can basically use it like on film sets. They use the boom mics.
Yeah.
Right, so it picks up basically the entire room.
Picks up
instead
everything.
of like one.
Yeah.
thing.
Okay. So we just do the intro later, but we just get ripping right now.
Yeah,
so,
no worries, man.
There's any accolades you want me to go over? I don't have a script
They
for
have
you.
accolades, man.
Okay. Let me just get this going here now. And then Chelsea bought the copy. I don't think it's arrived yet,
Oh, cool.
but it's what's the name of it one more time?
Permanently for now. Sounds a lot deeper than it is.
Really?
You ever seen the movie Sideways? I've never seen Sideways.
Sideways I've seen, but that was with Polygiani. Yeah.
Oh yeah. When he goes, she's like, "What's the name of your novel?" He goes, "The Day After Yesterday," and she goes, "So today?" And he's like, well, "Yeah."
Day.
And then
So
it's very much that feeling.
we can find it on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Permanently for now.
Permanently for now.
Just gonna get it pulled up. Why am I not seeing it?
You got to put in my name with it too.
Oh, okay.
It's not that popular.
Hasn't made up to the
Not
top
up to the top
sellers yet.
searches, yeah. They come up.
Why am I not seeing it?
Permanently for now, Bobby Brooks. You always spell my name with an IE though. You got to put a Y.
Oh, I thought you liked it with an IE.
I like it with an IE, but it's spelled with one.
My grandmother did that until the day she died, so don't worry about it.
Come and help me. Why am I not seeing it up?
Permanently spelled wrong.
That could definitely be it. How do I spell that?
Permanently.
Mantly.
En.
En.
No, you're good. Hold on.
You just get it. I'm not a great speller. There it is. Or
Go down. Might be down there somewhere. There it is.
right there. Okay.
It's the third option.
Got it.
The two first options don't even have that title.
That's all right. We're gonna play.
Listen,
So
Bezos, we need to fix this.
Yeah.
Come on, Jeff.
So the Reforged podcast, the reason I think you're a great fit for us, not only because you're one of our bros, but is like it's all about like reforging yourself from pain.
Sure.
Really, whether it's physical, mental, shit you fucked up, relationships, whatever. So you being an artist, both in like music and written form, obviously, right? Do you do any? I mean, that covers the gamut. But you play musical instruments as well.
I play guitar.
You sing.
I do a little singing.
Yeah.
Best I can.
But this is like what you've been working on.
Yeah.
Okay, so when did this start? When did you start writing this?
Honestly, it's been kind of like years in the making. Emily asked me the other day when I started it, and it's kind of like some poems in it are probably 5 years old. Mm-hmm. Some I wrote a couple months ago kind of thing. So I was kind of piecing together and adding it, and it's kind of one of those things. I don't know how other writers do it, but for me it was like I didn't necessarily set out to write like a poetry book. Mm-hmm. It was just all of a sudden I realized I had enough volume for a collection.
You can put it in.
Yeah, it's like you kind of, I think there's 53 poems in it. And I didn't really sit down one day and say, I'm going to write 53 poems. It was just kind of one day I was like, because I started out, I think there was about 76 initially in this. And I cut it down. I just kept, like, every time I reread it and proofread it, which hopefully there's no mistakes in it. If anyone finds any, feel free to call me out. But I just kept, every time I reread it, I pulled a couple, like, I don't think that's good enough, or I don't think it fits necessarily with the themes. So then I trimmed it down. I think, don't quote me on that, but I think there's about 53 in there.
But 53. So was that like the magic number, or were you just like?
Now it's just kind of like I just like these ones. You know, it's just kind of they all fit. I have some ones that I have written recently that I really liked.
Okay.
That I kind of wanted to sneak in late, but I was like, you know what, I'll put that in the next one.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
So is this the first thing you've ever like publicly released?
Yeah. So it's technically speaking my second book.
Okay.
The first one I didn't put out, and I don't think I ever will, because it's a funny thing when you start writing and you go back and read some stuff that you think is good when you're younger, then you reread it and you're like, oh, that's compared to how I write now or my experiences now, it's just like it's not great, you know. So I don't think that one will ever see the light of day. I have a couple copies that I gave to my brother and my mom and stuff like that, but they're just not good enough in terms of like what I'm writing now, to me at least. So
okay, and John and I were talking about this, like writing's like a skill, right? Is that what you were saying? Like,
yeah, no, I was just saying that like writing is like kind of like anything else. Like kind of what you're saying is when you start out, it's like, you know, kind of shaky and like your process and like how you word things and just how it goes. But then like the more you do it, the kind of more you flow with it.
Sure. I think it's one of those things that can be. That's why I love poetry so much, is because there's no rules.
That you can do what you want.
Yeah, there's a couple poems in this that have no punctuation whatsoever. It's like doesn't really need to. There's some that are grammatically correct, I hope. But yeah, there's just kind of no rules, and I think it's one of those things. Writing to me is, you can kind of parallel it to fitness, I suppose. There's some things that are just innate that you kind of have to have. It's almost like the difference between talent and skill.
yeah,
Right? It's like talent you're kind of born with, but skill you hone, right? So when you're talking about like technical like proficiencies with writing, there's certain like tricks and different things you can work on. Like I've definitely sat down to say like I'm gonna write this type of poem,
yeah,
and then you kind of do that a couple different times, whether it's like rhyming couplets or whatever, right? But I think this is gonna sound really egotistical almost. But I think like the ability to kind of formulate the words is almost like you have to have.
you have
Does
to
that
have
make
that.
sense?
Yeah,
It's kind of like we've known plenty of people in the gym that are like, that guy's just like naturally really strong, you know, and like working out over time got stronger and got technically more proficient in the lifts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they're born, there's something else going on there, like genetically.
big red.
It's yeah, right, exactly.
Doesn't train arms, biggest arms. in the
Biggest
gym.
arms you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I think in
What
a
a
way, most artistry, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe there's plenty of like stories on the other side of that, but I think in a way you kind of have to have the ability first, I guess, and then you can definitely hone the skills. But
When did you first start writing?
probably about when I was 12, I want to say.
Okay.
And I know that seems like oh, you know the exact age, but my parents got divorced when I was 12, and I started writing right around then.
Okay, so that affected you.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was like I've always been a huge music fan. Music has always just been spoken to me in some way, kind of like lit my soul on fire. So my favorite band is the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and the first book I ever read cover to cover was Anthony Kiedis' autobiography.
Really?
Been a huge Chili Peppers fan, but for me it was kind of, he talks about writing and what writing did for him in that book, and I read it when I was 12, which I should not have. It's insane.
The
you know?
Chronicles of a Rock
Yeah,
Band.
because and especially
He's
someone like
12
that, like
years old.
Anthony Kiedis had done like heroin, cocaine,
Yeah.
and everything else before he turned 13. So it was kind of like,
Wow.
it's the wildest story. You read that book and you're like, how the hell are you alive?
That's crazy.
But he talks about that a lot. So I think in a way, like I had a lot of pent up energy and feelings, and it was kind of like I have to get this out somehow. So I started just kind of like jotting stuff down. And I listened to their music so much, and he's a very poetic writer. I think he's one of the, I'm biased of course, but I think he's one of the best lyricists to ever live. Him and Billy Joel, to me. So I just kind of started like seeing like, maybe I could do that too, you know? And then lo and behold, it just made me feel a lot better. It was a way for me to process emotion a lot and figure things out for myself and stuff like that.
So did you start writing first or playing music first?
I definitely started writing first.
Writing first, okay.
It got to a point where I was writing, and I was in a couple bands when I was younger, and I didn't play anything. I didn't play any instruments and stuff. I sang a little bit, and I always had the lyrics and like the words. chords. That was kind of like my forte. But it got frustrating to me over time because it was like I'd go to like my guitarist's house and stuff and be like, I wrote this poem, I think it'd be great for a song, and we couldn't really match up music to it or something like that. So over time I was just like, I need to start playing guitar because I need to be able to put the music to this myself when I want to.
Oh, okay.
that's kinda like-
So writing came first, then the music came.
Yeah. Which can be an interesting thing. I think every musician has different ways of approaching it, but for me, what's funny is that now it's kind of flipped. Like the music comes first for me. I'll sit down
you write too.
and then I write too.
Yeah.
Because I found it's for me too, because I'm not, I play guitar, but I'm not a guitarist by any means. So for me, it's like it's hard for me to take a poem I've written or lyrics I have and put the music to it, but it's much easier to put words to the music. For me, at least.
Gotcha. Makes
So.
sense. And then you've done some like acting and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was
Talk about
actually
that
a
little
theater
bit.
major.
You were.
I was a theater
I
major.
remember seeing you perform in college.
Did you?
Yeah,
What did
when
you
were
see?
when we were seniors, I guess.
Okay.
You're when we worked. So we worked together in college at the rec center.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch
John
of
and I
us.
go way back.
No, I didn't
was,
know this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there somebody else that worked there that was in
Pablo.
Pablo, yeah.
Yeah.
You and Pablo
Yeah.
both had. It was like your last performance or something. I think
Was it,
that last year of
The-
school.
Was it the Greek one?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. There's togas involved.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember a bunch of us came and watched it.
Yeah.
Watched you guys perform
Yeah, that's
or
cool.
whatever.
Yeah, so I was a theater major, which was funny working at the gym and kind of
Yeah.
like getting into working out while that was happening. So I got into like fitness and stuff my freshman year of college probably. I worked out in high school for football and stuff, but not seriously
Okay.
into like bodybuilding
All
till
right.
college. But it was always kind of a funny thing because I was a theater major, so all my professors were like, "Stop getting so big. You're not
And
getting."
you were big.
Cats. I was pretty big at the time.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was probably about. I feel like John and I were talking about this the other day. I got up to about 207 at one point.
Would you look like a mini fridge?
Oh
And
yeah,
how-
I was
how
waddling
tall are you?
around 5'6".
5'6".
Good day.
207.
I was like turning my shoulders to walk through.
Jesus.
It's no life. I don't recommend it to anyone. It's
That-
fun because you're really strong and people are like, holy shit, you're big. It helps that I'm so short too. But yeah, it was insane. The amount of food I was eating. I was like eating every 2 hours on the dot, and I was eating like 6,500
I
calories.
mean,
a
you're
day.
still big.
Yeah, thanks.
What were you?
I mean,
What were you? What were you when you started at us with us?
At
with-
Equinox, I was about 193, 195ish.
So there was
And right now,
like a
I'm-
14 pound. Because you were big when you came in, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I'm like 175 right now.
Well, you look good.
Thanks.
I
I
mean,
feel good. I mean, quarantine has been so weird. I've been running so much more, which
Running?
is weird. Yeah,
Wow.
I hate it.
I
mean,
mean,
it's
it's
good
good.
because
Keep doing it.
Yeah, it challenges your body differently and stuff, but
See, I want to do that. I now that I can't, like literally can't do it, I really want to do
Yeah.
it, which is bizarre because my back has been on tilt and then my knees are getting pummeled for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
yeah.
So I started rehab, but I can't run. And now, like I see people running, I'm like, oh, it looks so glorious. And I'm really like, before this, I was like, fuck running. I'll never do it. You know, like, I'll give you the fastest 100 yards I can possibly give
Sure.
you, but I'm never gonna actually want to run around
Yeah.
the block. And
Well,
now,
that's
like,
the thing for me. I was a running back in high school, so I have decent speed. And stuff. I was 207. Yeah. So I don't mind running sprints and stuff, but yeah, it was insane. It was just too big. Like bending over to tie my shoes, and like I couldn't touch my shoulders.
But you had mentioned that you gain size very rapidly, right?
Oh yeah, very much so. Yeah, my body, honestly, it's a blessing and a curse, but my body fluctuates very quickly. Like I can go from being completely shredded on Monday, and Thursday I'll be like, you don't see any abs or anything like that. It's crazy. Emily and I even I tell her that all the time. Like, I'm serious. My body changes like in a day. And she's like, it's not possible. And then lately she's been like, that's actually
possible.
true. It's crazy.
And so I'm to get off of the artistry and stuff like that, just for a second, to go a little bit deeper into this.
Sure. It's all in the same vein, though.
Do you find that
it's like logically speaking.
people that usually put on muscle tissue at a rapid rate, they will also lose it at a rapid, or more, like an equally rapid rate if they stop?
Sure. Yeah.
Do you see that with
Yeah,
yourself?
I think me personally, I can put on muscle very easily, but I put on body fat very easily.
Okay, so it's like both.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think for me, I think just being so short, I have to work
More
very
lean.
hard to stay lean,
Yeah.
you know, and to look shredded. So like that's why like when I was cutting it, where we were working.
You still look big, like muscular, like not like you didn't look fat.
No, yeah,
You know what I mean?
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, when I say put on body fat, it's more body fat than I would like to carry.
Right.
I think maybe from years of working out and building up some like muscle density, it's maybe our terms of body fat
Skewed.
are a little
Different,
skewed.
yeah.
Because like I'll have mornings I wake up and be like, oh my god, I'm in terrible shape, and then my brother will be like, you're an asshole. You know.
Did you ever compete in bodybuilding or anything
No,
like that?
I thought about it very
Yeah.
seriously for a long time. It
You
was-
like are
yeah.
Yeah, kind of go
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah,
right?
no, yeah.
5'6" and
I think I could have been good at it maybe. I got really into it when I was 22, 23.
okay.
It's like all I did. I watched videos all the time. I studied a bunch of stuff. I got super into it. I was working out with Logan and just trying to get stronger and bigger. And like I said, I was eating like 6,500 calories a day. But I think for me, I just the artistry for me was always more important, and that really fell by the wayside. Because when you're training like that, man, it's like I have respect for people that do it because it's like I said, it's no life to me. It's when you look back on it, it's like it wasn't fun.
yeah.
I woke up early so I could eat. Right, I went to bed late so I could eat.
You ate all day long.
I was eating all day long. I was eating, sleeping, and training.
The
and
mental energy to make sure you had all the food.
And I
with
didn't
you
have much
enough.
mental energy.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. I look back on that time. I was really depressed.
Yeah.
This is all I was doing. I was big as a house, but I was depressed, and everything sucked. You know.
It is a kind of an interesting kind of dichotomy, right? Whereas a lot of people will think, oh, if I lose weight or gain muscle mass, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
But then you get to this level where you're giant, you're low body fat, you're by all standards you're jacked and this is the ideal,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
But then you get there and you're like, shit, I'm still depressed.
Absolutely.
This kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to ask yourself why you're doing those things, right? Because it all comes from a place psychologically.
Yeah.
And that is, I think that's why, well, at least for me, that's why I started working out. I think a majority of males start working out because, I'm not saying all of them. John, if you told me you started working out for other, sports purposes, I would actually believe you. Rather than being like, I want to be more like a man. I would believe you, but everybody else, I call them horseshit. I was a skinny, I was I think I was 6 foot when I was in 8th grade, and then I went to 6'3" by the time I graduated high school. And I was still, when I graduated high school, I think I was $185.
Yeah.
And I was, not big by any stretch of the imagination, and it took me, the next decade plus 6 months of quarantine to put on to get to 225. Now I don't want it, but mine started because, and that's really interesting. I love that point you made because if you realize where it starts from, you can kind of, I think you could shape your path much better. Mine started just sheer insecurity.
Yeah. And I think honestly, I used to joke with Emily. I hope she doesn't mind me saying her name so much, but I used to joke all the time when we were at our place of work that remember when the new hires would come in, we'd do the 2 minutes of asking them questions.
Yeah.
I always used to want to raise my hand and say what dark moment in your life or what traumatic experience got you into fitness.
Yeah.
Because to me, in my experience, it's a theory that hasn't been proven. But in my experience, almost everyone has some weird moment in their life that made them feel less than or something like that sparked them into fitness. Or
100%.
right? I
100%.
got sick, or I went through this abusive relationship, this happened to me, or whatever.
Situation.
Right? And it's I needed a place where I could feel powerful or feel in control of something.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people find it in fitness. Now, it doesn't have to be that, right? If you start working out in high school for sports and you can fall in love with fitness in any way. I just find in my experience, I believe fitness comes from a darker place in the mind.
I think usually there's some sort of driver, even if it is I'm also doing it for these other benefits.
Sure,
of course, something like that.
Yeah, well, it takes on the other benefits.
Yeah, but especially males. I can't speak for females, but it's this.
We can do anything we want on this podcast.
This insecurity. I'm not gonna do that. This insecurity thing, or a lot of times if someone's really skinny or really fat, the opposite, right? They're oh my god, this mental fuckery.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Where
absolutely
I need to change this, and it gives them control, you're saying, right?
Yeah.
But then, are you working on the other things too, or
Yeah.
not? Right.
Well, I think that's why if you don't understand that path, why
Yeah.
you're doing it, it can become very dark. It can become a very interesting place. Like people ask me why I'm not really training people anymore.
Yeah.
And training for me was something that I never really wanted to do because fitness holds a very weird spot in my mind because I understand the path of where it came from for me.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's almost like an addiction in some way, right? So there's days where I'm like, I don't want to do this at all, but I have to because there's something inside me that's pulling me toward it.
So for you, it wasn't like your passion is training people.
Right. Yeah. No, I love helping people, and I love the look on people's faces when it's like, holy shit, I just benched 200. It's like, yeah, it's fucking awesome. I'm glad I could be a part of that.
Yeah.
But for me, it's never. I never felt the pull of like I desperately want to train people just because of what fitness is to me.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like held a weird place for me.
Yeah.
So
I think for me, it's why I want to train people because I'm such a late fucking bloomer that it's unreal, right? I mean, I didn't start turning my life around until I was like 36.
Sure.
So the last 2 years have been wonderful. But before that, it was all filling a void of insecurity and inadequacy. That's like all I was doing. So if I can help somebody just bridge one of those gaps so that they don't have to feel that way or like look at the way, like one less morning where they look in the mirror and be like, I'm a piece of shit.
Sure.
Absolutely. You know, like, so I think that's what my pull is to fitness is that I want to not have people feel that way.
Yeah.
Like self-esteem is like super important in my opinion. So
absolutely.
I mean, I'm in there to help them change their bodies and hit their goals, but the real reason they're doing that hopefully is one, to be healthier, and two, because they want to feel better about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, I mean, the huge draw for me. But
well, and that's how I think fitness, like behavior, gets reinforced in a way, right? For me, it was, and this could be part of the path where fitness comes from. For me, is that all my best friends growing up are huge people. Like my 2 best friends in the world, one's 6'3", one's 6'9". You know what I mean? I'm 5'6". So it's like, look, and like
big difference.
Yeah, they're huge. Like you look at pictures of us together, and they're just like trees standing next to me. And one was a Marine, one's a Navy SEAL.
Wow.
So it's kind of like I had no choice but to get big, right? So, and in a weird way, like my height has never bothered me at all because it's one of those things like I can't control that in any way. So why get upset about that? But I think maybe there's some part of me of like, they were growing at such a rapid rate, and I was never growing. So I was like, but I could grow this way.
But I can do with this. I can do this to control it.
And that's the thing, though. Like what I realized, the bigger I got, no one ever talked about my height. Even when I was like around them, like they'd be like, we'd walk into a bar, somebody would be like, people would be like, dude, you 3 guys are fucking huge, right? Like, and I'm sitting there like, really? You know,
I don't feel
huge. So I don't know, but like it gets reinforced like that, right? When someone says like, "Damn, dude, your arms are looking big," it's kind of like that's a great feeling. Everyone likes to feel.
It is,
something like that, right?
And it definitely like it hits the ego a little bit too.
100%.
Right?
It's all ego.
It's
absolutely,
like it's like you know, especially like when you first start to make changes like with your body, like if you're whether you're really overweight or you're really skinny. Whatever it is, and you like make changes the opposite way, and like you get this like positive feedback, or like you think it's positive feedback.
Sure.
In most cases, it is, and it like grows your ego, and you're just like, like, I like this, I like this, like
100%. It can become very vain.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It can. If like I mean, obviously we probably know a lot of people that are like that, right?
Yeah, sure.
That they let it get to that point, right? But you have to make that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why it's so important to understand the path psychologically, right?
Yeah.
Because like something I realized in my own life is like fitness for me really started when I was a kid, because the environment I grew up in wasn't always the greatest thing in the world, right? And I remember vividly I must have been 8 or 9 years old, walking through the airport, and I saw a Muscle and Fitness magazine with Ronnie Coleman on the cover, and I remember literally having the thought, he must not be afraid of anyone. So like my mind, like a switch went off of like, you need to look like that, then you won't be afraid anymore, right? And the thing that can really rock your world to me is when, not to say in any way I ever looked like Ronnie Coleman, but the biggest I ever was probably like the scared I ever was, the most scared I ever was,
really?
If that makes sense. Because what you realize is like, you still haven't patched that hole, right? That void of what you're feeling, or that insecurity, that fear that you carry around with you. You can be as big as you want to be, but if you don't fix that, you don't like go to that source, you're gonna feel even worse because you're this big hulking guy that like still feels terrified of every room you walk into.
Interesting. That is, I knew we were gonna get some deep shit.
Yeah.
I really, that's some good insight. John, why did you want to be a trainer?
So why I wanted to be a trainer was kind of I guess the biggest thing was like what fitness did for my life and like personally, kind of like it helped me really grow as a person and like kind of address some of like those issues.
Sure, yeah.
And I was able to that was my way of getting to those issues and kind of, fixing them up as best as I could. It really kind of showing the light on some of the other things.
Yes, absolutely.
And like when I kind of went through that, like I was like, oh shit, like, and then I found out I could do this like as a career and actually make money and like make a living off of it. I was like, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I'm for. And also selfishly, like, I never want to work in a fucking office and like a corporation. Like that is not for me. Like, so that's like a very big driver too. Like I want to like kind of live life on my standards and not like in this corporate wheel. Just because we all know people that do this, and like I have some close friends that are kind of stuck in that, and it's like misery.
Yeah,
right?
it's soul crushing.
Right, and I never want to have that. Right? So there's multiple factors, of course, but
I get that though, because it's like even where we used to work, it's for me sometimes being just like maybe having that artist brain.
Yeah.
That was even too corporate for
I
me.
get you. Yeah.
It's like all the like little stuff we had to do, like this drive me nuts.
Yeah,
I don't want to submit any of this stuff.
This color shirt or this color shirt?
Come on, dude. Just let me talk to these people. Let me have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some people like do really well with that structure.
100%.
And then others are like, fuck this.
Yeah.
Like, this is not for me.
I think part of that can come from, and like I don't mean to say that like little psychological rant I went on to impugn fitness in any way, because fitness can be going amazing.
Yeah.
But I think when something fitness can bring to your life is that structure.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I built structure for myself, like I woke up at this time, I went to the gym at this time, I ate at this time. Then when you fall into someone else's structure, sometimes it can be like, well, wait a second, I usually work out at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I think is like a good real world not being like, this is how life actually is. You're going to have to adapt, right? But yeah, I think that's, for me, I always kind of struggle with that. It's like I've always kind of had troubles at the workplace in that sense. Like, I'll do great here. I'll bring my personality to it. I'll talk to everyone. I'll have a great time. I'm not going to fill out this daily report. I'm just not going to do it, man. It's not
That's the
my
artist side,
jam.
right?
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna go. When I leave this place, I'm leaving this place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like to a fault, because I probably could have done better if I would have put in that extra effort. But I think for me, like that's why I said never really wanted to be a trainer. So for me, it's like when I went home, I switched that off. It wasn't like I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna reach out to more clients and I'm gonna do all this stuff. It's like I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna write and play guitar.
Yeah.
Because that's what I even when I was in that building, that's all I was thinking about.
Yeah. That's your passion. That's what you want to do.
Yeah. And not to say I wasn't passionate about fitness, but it wasn't like it just didn't light up my soul.
Yep. And everybody's different in that realm. Like everything. Some people like cars. Some people like
100%. It's all valid.
Like to do Ironmans, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's like finding that thing for you.
Yeah.
And
that's the tough part about for me is like everyone. I guess it's kind of cool. It's a cool dichotomy, but like this is gonna sound superficial and goofy as well. But like when you look at me, the way my body's built, and then I say like, oh yeah, I write poetry, people usually go like, what? Really?
I know I did that exact same thing in the back room.
Yeah.
You were like scribbling something, and I'm like, oh, you writing a program? You're like, no, poetry.
Yeah.
No, you're not. And you're like,
no,
yeah. And that's the thing. Like most of the time, I have my phone out. I'm like on notes, jotting something down, like an idea, or full on writing something.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of the tough thing is people would see me and be like, "Oh, fitness must be your passion."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
actually.
Yeah, it's not. You know, just like I'm passionate about it. Is it my passion? No.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was just something I enjoyed and I was good at, and I'm good at teaching people about it from my limited knowledge base. But yeah, it's just I'm thinking about other things most of the time.
Which is cool. I mean,
Yeah.
you recognize that, and then
Sure. Well, and I think at times it was almost like I felt almost bad in a way about it, especially working where we worked because it's so high end and it's like, I mean, you guys are the best trainers I know. You know what I mean? You're like, I would recommend you guys, any of my former clients or anyone to you guys. So it was like part of me as a trainer didn't feel worthy to be there sometimes. You know what I mean? Like I should be giving more of myself to these people and to this place than to. I've even thought about like leaving a few times because of that. Because it's just like I need to be putting in more effort to work at a place like this, and I just wasn't.
Yeah.
You know.
But you can also have in that environment trainers that are very good trainers or knowledge based, but not good trainers.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
There's a blend there, I
Yeah.
think. So
Something for me though that I was kind of focused on because of that, because of the training aspect, I would put you two on from your knowledge base up against anyone.
appreciate that.
I wouldn't put myself there, right? So something I always try to do with my clients is, especially like my younger male clients and female clients, but for me it was more of how can I impact them mentally as well, right? So it's like when they show up here and when they leave this session, I want them to be in a better mood or a better place mentally when they leave, right? So for me it was like it went beyond the physical body a lot of the times. That's why I had like very, very deep relationships with a lot of my clients because that's just kind of how I am.
Yeah.
You know, in the first couple minutes of talking to anyone, I kind of want to figure out what you're all about.
Yeah.
You know, tell me your deepest fears and secrets, and let's have a great conversation.
Well, that was one of the things that drew me to you because I was pulled to a bunch of different people. I think I was pulled to Pap originally because he was so different than anybody else that I'd ever worked with before, and young, right? And his knowledge base is incredible. And I'm like, I'm gonna see what he does.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't talk to anybody at first. He's like, he was like the most quiet guy. And so I remember telling Sam in the back, I'm like, I'm gonna crack him open. I'm gonna find out what he's about, you know. Find out what secrets he's hiding, you know.
That's the best. That's the good stuff.
But then when you came in, it was like, oh yeah, my name's Bobby, you know, and I'm like, oh, I'm Derek, and you're like, what's your biggest fear? You know, like, and it's like, wow, sweet. I don't have to have, because I was, you know, where we work, you have to kind of get used to small talk.
Sure, yeah.
With most people, they want a little bit of that before you like take a plunge off the cliff.
Trainers and barbers are the masters of
small talk, right? 100%. You can talk about fucking weather every day and make it interesting.
100%.
So, but there was none of that with you, and I loved that. And then I realized that was I didn't like small talk.
Yeah.
I'd do it.
Yeah.
But I realized I didn't like that. So then every time I'd run into the back room, it was always something. We'd always dive into something deep. You know?
Sure. I think a lot of times it's a very vulnerable place to be, and for me, I think being a theater major really helps because I always joke about like, you know, that's why our bosses would always have me, you know, when we had to role play something, it was like, Bobby, why don't you come on up? Sure. Because I was talking about one of the first acting classes you take in acting school is called Acting the Instrument. What it teaches you is basically to use your body and be comfortable being seen doing anything. Right? So there's this exercise we do called animal essences. So you have to pick an animal, everyone sits on the floor watching you, you have to pick any animal you would like, and then you have to crawl across the floor as that animal for 2 minutes. If you can do that in front of a room full of people you barely know, you can do anything. Right? So in a way, it kind of like, it breaks that wall down, right? It's like, do you want to come up and present this in front of everyone at work? Sure. I've crawled across the floor as an elephant. You know?
That is really interesting because it's like, it kind of breaks down those like all those thoughts that you have in your head of like what are these people thinking, and
100%,
and then realize that it really doesn't fucking
matter at all.
Like they don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. So and for me it's just kind of like, yeah, I know what the weather is like. I We don't have to talk about that. I kind of want to just like get to know you. But I think it's definitely like, it's an intense place to be sometimes, and I don't mean to come across a lot of times as like abrasive, because some people don't want to talk about that, and that's totally okay. But for me, it's like, if I'm gonna make a connection with you, I'm gonna make a connection. You know, I want to touch your soul.
That's what I want too, but it's like there's some people you can't avoid in life that you have to small talk, and like I just find that it's more annoying now than it ever has been for me. But you and I will get into some deep shit in text, and then when I see it, we get into some deep shit.
I think it's fun though, like the people. It's almost like a little game. Like the people that really won't open up. I feel like
try to crack them.
Yeah, most of the time they have some really, and it's not even like I'm gonna get you to like crack open. It's just that like if you're hiding that much and you're like that, odds are you have some really awesome shit to open up and share.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you've seen some shit, you've experienced some shit. Like I want to, not even like that I'm so arrogant to say as I can help you, but I just want to hear about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just being a human being and just going through stuff myself, and kind of like everyone has that stuff, you know? And to me it's interesting, and to me it's like if you can get that out there and talk about that with anyone, have that vulnerable moment, you can do anything.
It's interesting you say that, because that's actually one of my favorite parts about training, is you get to talk to like literally like all walks of life, and like these people that have like really crazy experiences in like one avenue of life, and then the next hour you get to just have like a completely different perspective and like life experiences.
Absolutely.
And especially if like you're training like an older demographic, like they've had like their whole life, 60 years of like stuff that'll come out over time, and it's just so cool to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
And like just to hear their
and why are they
experience
getting
and
into
thoughts and-
working out now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's
And the whys behind it.
Sure.
It's super interesting stuff.
Yeah, everybody's got kind of a different story, and it's really awesome just to hear it, even if I don't understand it.
Yeah. That's why the why part of like the assessments we would do is always my most fun thing. It's like it's like okay, let's get rid of all this, and like why are we here?
Yeah.
You know, why are you doing this? Why are you at 42 deciding all of a sudden? Most of the time you'll you'll crack some like really interesting nut, right? Of like, oh, I haven't had sex with my wife in 3 months. It's kind of like, what? Let's unpack that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It's probably super interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I find in terms of that, like, you can really help people like that. So that's why I say, like, for a lot of my clients, it was very much, I want to help you mentally as much as physically, right? And it's kind of one vicious circle. And then maybe not even a vicious circle, but a cyclical in and of itself, right? Because you can start a mental change with your physical body, you can start a physical change mentally, right?
It branches out and kind of
100%.
can become like all encompassing.
Yeah.
And you can use those processes and whatnot in all aspects of life.
Yeah, absolutely. But I believe everything's deep. I think everything has a deeper meaning.
And I
That's why we love you,
yeah,
Bob.
that's why we love it. Yeah.
I don't think there's and it drives Emily nuts because she'll say something offhand that I'll be like, what did you really mean by that? She's like, nothing. I just meant I want ice cream. You know?
Really want ice cream.
Right.
That's it.
It's like no. But that's just like from everything I've read.
Motivation.
Studied. Yeah, exactly. What's your motivation behind that ice cream? From like everything I've read, studied, written about. It's just like not to suggest in any way that I'm a philosopher or anything, but I've always found that stuff very interesting. And to me, it's just there's no human act that's random. Yeah. I think even the smallest things you do during the day
has a purpose.
It has a purpose. It comes from somewhere, man.
Yeah.
Especially the big things you do in life.
Yeah.
It comes from somewhere. You can trace that back and nail that down to one event, one thing you heard, one thing you saw.
It's interesting to say that too, because we've talked a lot about like habits on this podcast, right?
Sure.
And of like, why you do things, right? And like you're saying, like a lot of them, or most, if not all of them, have like an origin, and something triggered that, whether it's a positive habit, a negative habit, or just like a benign habit, whatever it is, right? It comes from somewhere.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I call them shoelace moments.
Shoelace moments.
So like that moment of you're walking down the street, you realize your shoe's untied, you bend over to tie it, and the love of your life bumps into you. Right. If you didn't notice your shoelace was undone, then that doesn't happen.
That moment never happened.
Right. And those two worlds that converged like that could have been just kept going like that. Right, so in my own story of fitness, what we were just talking about, what if I was walking through the airport and someone had put a People magazine in front of that Muscle and Fitness magazine?
Yeah.
I might not be
That's
sitting
true.
in this basement right now.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right? Because of a small, tiny moment like that, I wouldn't have seen Ronnie Coleman on that cover.
Okay.
My life might be completely different.
Now to get really deep, do you think there's an alternate reality to that?
Like a parallel universe.
Yeah, like a parallel universe there?
100%.
Okay, so is there a body
I love this.
out there that did have the People magazine instead of
I think
the
there's a vibrance
Ronnie
that's
Coleman?
experiencing it as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that thought has always like really blown my mind.
Sure.
Just like thinking about that. I don't know if you've ever thought about that.
Oh man.
That could be a reason. There's plenty of philosophers and mythologists and stuff that have talked about deja vu.
Yeah.
Right, and that could be
That's
like
true.
an answer for deja vu.
Right.
Right. It's kind of like maybe for that brief moment of parallel
There's
universe
that like
convergence.
little split where they come together for a brief second and then go apart.
Yeah, like you go to a place you know you have never been to physically, and you walk in there and you go, God, this seems so familiar.
Yeah.
And I know I've never been here, but perhaps you have.
Which is it's but like what happens to me is I will dream about something.
Oh, dreams are fascinating.
And then 6 months later, or a year, 2 years, 4 years. I think the one happened 4 years. I dreamt this like I was in this thing and this lady told me no, and I'm like, that's all the dream was she told me no, but I was in the space, and I'm like, I remember walking in and I'm like, my kind of got like goosebumps. I'm like, I think I've been here before, and then the lady's like, no, I've never seen you before, and I'm like, this
Weird,
is odd,
right?
and like they've only happened like a handful of times, maybe like 4 times that I can really remember, but that is something I like in some other plane I'm totally different.
I think there's infinite possibilities in that regard, but dreams are fascinating because like Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, talks about how he did extensive dream studies, and he talks about how dreams are, in his theory, dreams are either fears or desires that have not come to fruition. That's all the dream is, right? So like that's why I think dreams are so important, and I think like anyone who's going through something or anything really, you ask them like, what have your dreams been like lately?
Yeah.
Right, because there's been plenty of writers that even suggested what's the real reality?
Yeah.
Right, your dream state or
is this right?
What do you say, right? It's the subconscious and the conscious mind. Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we gotta be plugged in the matrix right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this the dream right now, and the dream space is actual reality, or is it?
It's true. It's really interesting, right? And like Dostoevsky wrote extensively about the subconscious mind, and he used to talk about how the subconscious mind has been around for longer than the conscious mind, which is why you have moments like deja vu, and which is why you have moments of like I've seen this before, I've felt this before, or like you could even take it into God, right? The feeling of like I always say like this is a whole different.
No, dude,
roll.
Roll.
Talk about whatever.
This is what I discussed with John when I said Bobby might show up. We were just gonna let it go, the rip.
But you can talk about whatever your belief in God might be. You can take it to like the origin of that. Maybe the cavemen or Neanderthals were walking down a mountain and they stopped because they stubbed their toe and a rock slide came by. Had they not stubbed their toe, their family's dead, right? And little coincidental moments like that kept happening, right? So they gave it a name.
Yeah.
Right? To me, that's what God is, right?
Yeah.
Or that's what like the subconscious mind is, in a way. That's why Joseph Campbell said all the heavens and hells exist within you, right?
That's deep.
That is, he's got a lot. He can pull those out.
It sounds a lot more impressive. It's not that impressive, but I don't know. I just find stuff like that. To me, that's exhilarating stuff to me. It's really interesting. Like when you talk about, and that's why asking people what's your deepest fear, right? Because it's just like, to me, that's stuff interesting. Like I think one of the deepest questions you can ask a human being is, do you believe in God, right? Because a lot of people would be like, oh no, it's a yes or no answer. I'm like, well, it's really not. Yeah. If you're looking at it, maybe it is if you view God as like a man in the sky, saying like, yep, Rolls Royce, yep, Apple, like whatever, right? Just a man just granting wishes and deciding people don't get things, right? And not to like, look, if you view God in that way, more power to you. But for me, it's like, it's such an infinite kind of like the parallel universe. It's an infinite, we don't know. No one knows, right? So how could you possibly say like, oh yeah, 100%, this is what God is,
And see, with that, so I grew up in a very Catholic family. I went to private Catholic school. My family sacrificed a lot of shit so I could go to this private school that we definitely could not afford. And I think one of the reasons my mind was so shut down and I stopped evolving as a human, like very early, was because I was indoctrinated into the church, 100%. And it was like, this is the way shit is.
This is the only way.
This is the only way it is.
Outside of
this is it. And like I remember, you know, getting thrown out at the end of my 7th grade year because the priest would read our report cards out loud, and then he would shame us, publicly shame us. He'd be like, "Do you think Jesus wants you to have grades like this?" Yeah. Like, and you would be like,
"Do you think Jesus wants me to?"
And then I was like, and my.
Let's talk about some of the people in your profession.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly. But my neighbor at the time, Ricky, who I hung out with all the time, he was in public school, and I remember him saying, "Don't you get it? Like, the Easter Bunny isn't real, Santa Claus isn't real." And they're saying this guy rose from the dead, but he wasn't a zombie. And I'm like, so, because then he would shame you, and then he would ask you questions. And I remember going, well, if the Easter Bunny isn't real, and you could see it in his face, I still remember it clear as day, or at least I'd like to think I remember it clear as day. I could see him, like, he knew exactly where I was going, and then they were just like, get out of class. And then, like, you know, I got to go to public school for my 3rd year,
but that's the point. We've touched on this a little bit before, but that's why religion can be such a dangerous
It's stunting.
Right?
I think it was stunting. And then, like, I always believed that there was one way.
Yeah.
So...
And that's missing the whole point.
It is.
Right? Because, like, whenever I go on, like, rants like this, like, in front of my family, I was raised Catholic, I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to my senior year of high school. Right? So when I got into philosophy and started thinking about things differently, it rocked my world completely. Right? Because, and that's why I say religion can be so dangerous, because there's so many, like, I'm losing my train of thought.
No, you're all right.
But there's so many, like, you're missing the point of it all, right? So when I get, well, that's where I was going. When, like, my family, like, calls me out for being like, oh, you're an atheist. I'm not an atheist at all, in fact. But there's so many, like, you're missing the point of the mythology. The mythology is the point, right? Controversial point. But personally, I don't believe Jesus Christ ever existed. The man himself, personally, right? And a lot of people will be like, well, that's not, you know, like, blah, blah, blah. But that's not the point. Whether he exists or not is irrelevant. The mythology is what's important, right? How he treated other people according to this book. That's the whole point. Yeah. Like, the religious doctrine is not the point at all. Yeah. This book is not the point, right? So when we're following things of, like, human beings can't do this because it says it right here, like Joe Rogan says in that one time, like, because it was written in animal skin 4,000 years ago, we can't do that. It's silly, right? But the mythology is the important things, and that's what religious doctrine, all this bullshit, it gets wrapped up and it gets tossed by the wayside, right? It's like, yeah, but guys, this doesn't matter. The whole point, and Jesus existing or not doesn't matter. What was important was how he picked up prostitutes and said, like, it's okay. You know?
It's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
The mythology is the whole point.
And I think what can get that going on a dark path is, like, not being able to separate yourself from, like, this is what I was taught or I believe, and, like, not being able to release yourself from that. Maybe you're not completely correct on this.
Sure,
like, maybe this what all I've known, like, going to Catholic school for 12 years.
I've never thought about it.
12 grades, right? I've never thought about it differently, but, like, so, like, that fear of being wrong or not completely right, I think can, like, really create a lot of, like anger and, like, you know, resentment, confusion, and then, like, it gets turned into, okay, if you're not doing exactly what I think is correct and I've been raised to think is correct, then you are wrong.
Absolutely. Like, and there's a lot of people that still think like this. Yeah. Right? And there's a feeling of belonging that human beings, right? That's why we have 2 political parties. Right. People have to feel like they belong.
I'm this or this.
Right. And I don't have to formulate my own opinion because this is what they're saying. All I have to do is repeat everything they're saying.
Which is bananas to me.
100%.
Because it's like, if you don't form your own thought, and you don't want to take the time to form your own thought, like, where are we as a society?
Absolutely, we're going like this. We're spinning our wheels.
I mean, we can tie that into a bunch of shit that's health and fitness related, but like, we're just kind of like keep going further and further out.
Yeah.
Like the
pendulum swings more and more violent.
And John and I, always making a joke like it depends, and that encompasses everything. You know, when people ask us a yes or no question about how to train your quad, or you know, what's the best way to lose weight, or what's your tip to get rid of stubborn belly fat, or you know, like anything, like how are you gonna vote? Yeah. You know, like it's we only have red or blue.
Yeah, it should. It depends.
It depends.
Right?
Yeah. And oh man, we're just in such a chaotic spot.
Yeah.
Because of people can't accept the fact that it depends.
Yeah. That's why John Adams did not want a two-party system. He said it created divisiveness.
Which it definitely is doing that. And John and I were talking about this before I think we might have got a little bit on film, but we weren't recording at the time. But like, what happens in November? Like, who wins or who loses? Like, it's going to be chaos.
Either way, there's going to be a lot of pissed off people.
It's going to be crazy.
Right. And again, like to tie that into the religious conversation, right? That's not the point. Guys.
It's not the point.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah.
You're getting wrapped up in the doctrine, right, and not the mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of like what this all was created for, right? What we're doing here. And you're missing the point.
It's to improve quality of life for everybody in the United States. Yeah. Hopefully everybody in the world, right? But the only thing that's really spreading from the U.S. in a rapid rate is our obesity.
Sure.
Yeah. On our food. You know, like
shitty food.
Our consumerism culture where we buy a bunch of shit and we throw a bunch of shit out. And like we don't care where it goes because we don't see it.
Sure.
And so, you know, like I was a butcher for a long time, so I was really connected to the food that I was. Yeah.
Steve does everything. He worked in
so
like
awesome.
One of the most hardcore prisons
in
the world.
So
he was a butcher.
But like
a psych ward.
Yeah. But
he's a trainer.
But the like you had to really connect. You were really connected to your food because you knew where it came from.
Yeah.
You know, like I could go visit the farm where where things were getting slaughtered, and we'd get it quartered and sent to us or whatever. And then growing up on a farm, like you were connected to your food. You know, like you killed things.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
like,
an interesting thing too.
100%. Yeah, and so like I miss that connectivity, but I miss that for just about everything. And it just so happens that's the first thing Chelsea and I are tackling. We're going to this place called Polyface Farms.
Cool.
Next week, it's out in Virginia, and this guy ethically raises. I don't care if it's free range or like I don't give a shit about
it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But is the animal?
They're not like chained.
Does it have like a good? Does it have like a good life?
Yeah. Right.
You know, it's like the most important thing for me. I just need to get that plug over in there.
You dying?
I think that's good. No, I'm not dying yet. I just want to make sure we're not super close to it. I think we'll be okay down here.
That's what I said.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're in that space here.
But I want to reconnect, and then like it's right there. That's where I'm gonna start, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like, how did we get so far off from everything? And I think it's because people don't have deep conversations like
it all
this.
goes back to the why, right? It's like when you ask people why you're voting for X or why you're lifting weights, why you're reading that book. It's like, to me, you just have to figure that out. Right?
Yeah.
The why is so important because it's more enlightening too, right? Why do you believe these things about the religion you do? Because there's nothing wrong with any religions. It's what we do to them that become wrong. Right? It's how we pervert things, like anything else. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with either political party until it's perverted. Right? There's nothing wrong with whatever until it's even fitness. There's nothing wrong with it until it's taken to the extreme or perverted, right?
And that's the key is everything's kind of somewhere in the middle.
Sure.
You know? Like you just said, fitness can be taken to the extremes and it can get real ugly.
Sure.
Or it can be really positive.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's very rare you see somebody that lost 10 pounds and he kept it off for the rest of his life. Like, you don't see the middle ground.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not as sexy. Right? It doesn't get as much play.
Yeah.
Right? That's why the pendulum's swinging so violently, right? And people shouting and screaming is like, it's not as sexy as a deep conversation. But the deep conversation is much more fruitful.
But I feel like, and this is indicative of, I guess Joe Rogan's like my end all be all right now, you know? But like, he has like, almost 10% of Americans subscribe to his show.
Sure.
How wild is that?
It's crazy,
and that's like the opposite.
It might not be. No. It's I'm sorry. It's like 3%.
Okay,
but
still
healthy
shit ton of people, and they're listening to long conversations.
3 hours,
right? 3 hours, 2 hours is like short, right?
Yeah.
And like I know,
so people have the attention span.
Yeah,
it exists.
I think people crave it.
Yeah,
they just don't know they do until they hear it.
Yeah, and then they hear it and they're like, oh, this is actually really.
I've thought about this.
Really
Cool to take a deep dive in here.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
like
because it's you can't help but be interested by it. To me, at least, right? It's just like even that's why we could spark up a conversation about anything and we could take it to a deep place because it's just that's life to me. Like it's all deep, right? It all has a deeper meaning.
Yeah. So what in the pulling it back to your poetry, like we started with, the book, the whole
great
book,
tangent.
Permanently for Now by Bobby Brooks with a Y, not an IE. Like I was silly spelling, and I couldn't spell permanently either.
That's good.
The poetry in there, does some of your stuff like that we're talking about here, is there some of that imposed in this?
Yes and no. I think I write from a very personal standpoint.
Okay.
So a lot of it is, and that's why it's almost like it's a nerve-wracking thing to release because it's very much, to me, I believe that's what poetry is. But I mean, I always say art is open for interpretation, right? So whether I'm writing about a very specific thing, you read it and it makes you think of something and evokes something, that's valid, right? That's what it is to you. That's why I said on that post when I released it, something Dermot Kennedy says, like, these poems are yours now. They're not mine anymore now that they're out there. So whether you read it, like, I used to argue with my professors in college all the time, because I was a double major, I was an English major as well. I used to argue with my professors all the time, particularly the poetry ones, because a lot of them were regurgitating things they learned in grad school, of course. So they'd be like, there was a poem by Edgar Allan Poe called Annabelle Lee. And a lot of people think it's about, like, he married, like, his 9-year-old cousin or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's about her. A lot of people think it's about a ship, a boat. Yeah. Right? Whether or not it's about either one of those things is irrelevant, right? It's the beauty and what it evokes. What does it create for you, right? But I had a professor who was always, I'll never forget her as long as I live, because it ended up being a great thing for me. But she'd be like, it's about a ship. So my hand would go up. Like, are you Edgar Allan Poe? Well, no, of course I'm not. Well, how the hell did you know that, right?
Yeah.
And that's not the fucking point, right? It's not, like, poetry to me is not about, like, oh, what is he trying to say, right? It's like, if you want to try to figure that out, fine. But it's like, what does it do for you, right? What emotion does it bring out in you? What does it make you think of? What does it make you, like, remind you of in the sense, like, does it evoke imagery, feelings, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's I write from a very personal place. Anything I'm going through, people have loved, people have hated, whatever, right? So it's a very vulnerable place to be because that's just how I write. So you might read a lot of the stuff in there and be like, oh shit, But hopefully it's like maybe it connects in a certain way, makes you feel certain things. Because to me, that's what I felt. Yeah.
I guess I never thought about that before, because you would have, I'd have these literature classes where you would go over what the guy wrote, or she wrote, or whoever. You'd be like, what do they mean by this? And you're like, I guess I never stopped to question and be like, why does that matter? Well, here's what I think about.
Yeah, right.
And
sometimes people are writing about certain things, and it's really interesting to figure that out, which is valid. But if it, like I said, evokes something else in you, that's also valid, right? But there's also plenty of times from my own experience, I've sat down just because I also really enjoy the process of writing. So there's been times, and there's a couple poems in here that don't mean a damn thing.
Yeah.
They're just fun.
It's just like...
But that might mean a lot to someone
100%,
who reads it,
right? But in a way, it's like painting, right? Yeah. It's like not all painters sit down and say, like, oh, I'm going to paint this, and, like, out of my brain. It's like, for me, I look at craft, putting the words together, very much like putting colors together on a canvas, right? It's like, how can I, like, concoct these words together to make a beautiful sound, right? Or to make beautiful imagery, right? It means nothing other than these words crafted together in a beautiful way, right? So sometimes it's also like that. So it's like we're chasing a tale that doesn't exist sometimes in classes.
But you can connect, like, let's say you wrote something that it means this to you. Just because somebody else interprets it differently doesn't mean you don't connect with that person. You're connecting over the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It means something different to each one of you, which is, I think, beautiful in itself.
And to me, that's everything. That's what it is, right?
Oh, that's really cool you saw it that way. That's not the way I saw it, but that's cool.
Yeah. Ralph Waldo Emerson, I have this word says Redora. It's one of my favorite poems of all time. It's by Ralph Waldo Emerson. To me, he's one of the greatest writer to ever live. Very underrated poet. He's mostly known for his essays. he has a line in this poem where he says, "Tell them, dear, that if eyes were made for seeing, then beauty is its own excuse for being." So in other words, you don't have to explain why it's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
It just is.
Yeah, it just is, right? It's like if you find something's beautiful, it's like you can absolutely figure out why you find that beautiful.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that,
Yeah.
right? It can just be
You can just
beautiful.
enjoy it.
100%, right? So it's like, you know, Emily and I have this conversation a lot because she talks about like sometimes like she like poetry frustrates her because she likes to figure out what things mean, right? And
She's definitely a doer.
100%, yeah, absolutely. So, but I'm like, sometimes it doesn't mean anything other than this is just beautiful, right? The way the words roll off your tongue, the imagery it paints, right? Whether you're talking about a sunset, the beach, whatever, right? It's like that takes you to that place in your mind. It's like, wow, this is beautiful, right? It's like and that's it, right? Just maybe the writer's trying to bring a little more beauty into the world. That's it.
So you're like super deep. I think everybody that listens to this is gonna get that. But like,
I don't know.
For you, since you can go a million places, but like when you're writing, are you present or are you in that piece? Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question.
Because like whenever I'm talking with you, it's I know you're here. You know what I mean. You're not like thinking about shit you gotta finish or did I leave the stove on. You're here.
Hopefully I didn't. So our house is
But it's really interesting to me to think about your process, like where you're at when you are writing something. Because obviously you're physically sitting in an area writing,
of course.
But your mind is gotta be.
I think it depends.
Okay. Right. That's great. That's a valid thing. It always depends.
Big shirts that say
It depends. You should change the name of the podcast.
Yeah,
It depends. It depends, NPS. Yeah.
But I think that's a really interesting question. I've never really thought about that before. But I think it depends in the sense that there are sometimes I sit down to write something because I need to, right? Either an emotion I'm feeling, I just had an argument with someone, or I just relived a memory for some reason, and I'm like, I need to get these emotions out of me so that they don't come out in ways I don't want them to. Right?
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, writing was that for me. So in moments like that, I'm right there. There's nothing like a bomb could go off and I'd be like lost in those words. And then there's other times where it's like I just feel like writing, or I see something that's like, I don't know, that was really cool, or that was beautiful, right? I've written a couple things of like, I've seen little interactions between other people that I don't even know, and I'm like, that's a poem right there, right? Just needs the words on a page. So I think that's a little more lighthearted and fun. It's definitely interesting because I write a lot of things from a stream of consciousness place, so when I'm lost in like that, I'm just writing. Like I'm not even stopping to think. The words are just coming and coming and coming, and I'm just like writing. But then there's other times which I find I like these poems a little less. But there are times where I write a couple lines and I'm sitting there like this, and then scribbling and like. So when I find I'm like piecing together, it comes from a little bit less of a real place for me. It's more of like a like educational. Not educational, it's not the word I'm looking for, but I don't know, more of a practical standpoint.
It's like an exercise.
Technical, right? Yeah, like a technical place as opposed to like an emotional place, right? So it's like, I don't like the way that word sounds here, right? But when I'm really connected to a piece, I find I like how every word sounds and where it fits, because I was just so present and it was just rolling off the tongue, which is a cool experience because like, and I'm sure other writers or you can relate to it in any way, but it's like when I finish a poem like that, like in one sitting, those I rarely go back and edit those. It's kind of like I sit there and I go, holy shit, that was really fucking cool, and I feel a lot better now because all that shit I was just harboring inside and that was like twisting my mind all up. Now it's on the page and I can let it go.
So to pull that to the writing and your relationship, because you and I have talked about your relationship with your father.
Sure. Yeah.
Is he some of his essence present in this?
Not. I'm trying to think. I mean, yes and no. I think some of that essence will always be present.
Well, part of him was going to be present in everything because his relationship with you has kind of shaped you.
100%, yeah.
Right?
It's funny when I go back and read some of the stuff I wrote when I was younger, I almost exclusively wrote about that because I needed some way to deal with it. now as I've gotten older, I've tried to compartmentalize that a little more, and I think in a way, to me it's exhausted already. If I don't need to write about that anymore. You know, I've written enough words about that. It's my soul has been cleansed in a lot of ways of that via writing. In a lot of ways, I'll always feel some of that pain and stuff like that, but yeah, I don't feel the need to write about it anymore. It's almost like I don't want to give that the time of day or the energy anymore. So there's not in this particular book. I've written a couple about like that situation that I really like. That are maybe just they don't need to be said. They don't need to be out there. You know.
But
so.
you find some type of cathartic or catharsis through this writing process?
Absolutely,
Okay.
100%. In a lot of ways, like I said, going back to when I was a kid with Anthony Kiedis and stuff like that, it was like, that was very much my saving grace. I used to joke all the time about how the Red Hot Chili Peppers saved my life. And it was a joke, but it's kind of true in a way. Like, I think about it, like, if I wouldn't have found writing or a way to get this out and stuff like that, I don't know where I would be. You know, I don't know how I would be processing things. You know, because there's something to it, and that's what I genuinely hope someone reads it and finds some, you know, semblance of hope. You know, of like, oh, someone else has gone through similar things, or this makes me feel a certain way, and everything's gonna be all right. You know, so that's what like Anthony Kiedis and Red Hot Chili Peppers did for me.
That's
It's
cool.
like for the first time in my life, I was like, oh shit, everything might be okay. You know, because like he went through a lot of shit. He's doing all right. He's writing about it. Maybe I'll try that. You
And
know?
it's funny though that the shit that you go through that most people don't want to tell anybody is really like it kind of makes them better in a sense, I guess, or forges them to be
makes them who they are.
Yeah.
which makes them far more fucking interesting. to
Yeah,
me.
absolutely.
You know,
And
like
Go ahead.
I think it can be a negative or a positive thing.
Sure.
I think it's how you let it affect you
it's
too.
gonna depend.
Yeah.
Right? It
It
depends.
depends.
You know, if you let it take you down like a dark path,
Sure.
then it's going to be a pretty negative thing. But if you use that to take you down a brighter path, then it is what it is.
Yeah. And I found in my own life, I've gone down some dark paths, and a lot of, like, you could probably attribute that to it, right? It's interesting though, because I found in some of those darker paths, like living in Los Angeles and New York and stuff like that, some of the stuff you find yourself getting mixed up in those places. I found in those times I wasn't writing at all, which is interesting.
So you want to elaborate on some of the things you were?
I mean, you know, it's a typical, you know, Midwestern kid moves to Los Angeles. No, but I think, like, you know, not holding anything back in the podcast, my father's an alcoholic, and addiction runs very deep in my family. And it's one of those things that, like, I have that gene, 100%. Emily and I talk about this extensively. You and I have talked about this a little bit. There's certain things that I can't do anymore. I just can't.
Can't do it.
You know, like I can have a couple drinks every once in a while. I can't do drugs because I like them too much.
Yeah.
I found out the hard way.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately. But I think that's all things of, like, again, taking it back to, like, you got to dig deep and figure out why and where that comes from, right? And realize that you don't need that stuff and all that. But yeah, it's I found myself in some dark places in LA. Woke up on a couple bathroom floors that you know, how the hell did I get here? But it's interesting because I wasn't writing, I wasn't playing music during those times, you know. So it's almost like I was reaching for that, for something to, like, patch those holes that I was patching via art,
Yeah.
right?
Which is, I think we're all just trying to patch holes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All of life is patching
Finding-
holes.
And if you don't have any holes, you're pretty boring.
Yeah, but the thing is, everyone's got them.
Yeah, everybody's
right?
got holes.
Yeah, and that's okay. And I think that's the thing, is that, like,
We're in such a culture now where it's not.
it's not, right? And that's why I always try to be vulnerable with people, and why, like, I appreciate you saying that, because it sounds really nice, like, saying I'm so deep. But I think in a way it's like, I'm just trying to give permission to people to, like, it's okay, man. We're all human beings, right? I know you've done some fucked up shit. I've done some fucked up shit. I know you've gone through stuff that makes you feel less than. I've gone through stuff that makes you feel less than. And guess what? It's all right, man. Let's just, like, have a good conversation. You're safe. I'm safe. Let's be safe together. You know what I mean?
It's funny when you ask yourself, where does this come from, or why don't I like doing this, or why? You know, when you ask yourself those questions, it becomes really interesting. So, my grandma, 94, not in great health, flew back from Florida during the height of the pandemic, didn't wear a mask, just said fuck it. It was hilarious. And talking with her, I was always like, "Why I should see my grandma more? Why don't I see my grandma more?" And it's like because we don't have really good conversations.
Yeah.
We talk about what
Surface
should have been surface level shit. So 2 months ago, I decided I'm not gonna do that this time. When she brings up my brother and how good he's doing, even though he's I love my brother to death, but he's never done anything with his life, and he was he wasn't given a great hand. He was born legally blind. He had a mother that didn't treat him fairly, and my dad probably didn't do well. And then when we had a chance to send him to a school for the blind that was an hour away, he stayed there for the week, and then they would go pick him up. My family just chose not to do it because he wasn't worth 2 hours.
Wow.
So
talk about something that'll shape you, right?
yeah, and then listening to him cry himself to sleep every night because he was picked on so much at school, public school, because he just couldn't get good grades because he couldn't see, and then he tried to work out, and that was a fucking huge, all that kinds of shit. So I never wanted to. I always wanted to deal with the bully. That's what I always wanted. So God, where am I going with this? I was going someplace with it.
I think it's important though.
The grandma. Yeah, so it was always, we always talked about just how good he was doing, but he wasn't really doing well. They bought him the house, and that's fine. I don't, I'm glad they're taking care of him. But I decided I'm just gonna when she opens that up this time, because she always is gonna open that up, I'm gonna take a dive in.
Yeah.
And that's where
cool. That's a cool one.
And that's where I found out that my parents decided that they weren't going to spend the 2 hours a week to drive him and pick him up.
Yeah.
And she was like, and I should have stepped in and said. And I think part of the reason her and my grandpa supported him so much financially and bought him a house and everything is because she didn't do that one time.
Yeah.
She didn't speak up and say, "Well, I can spend 2 hours and do that a week." Because what's 2 hours? It's not much in the course of a week, So we got into that, and then we got in. She actually asked me how I felt about this Black Lives Matter thing, and my view on the police, and what my DUI was like, and how I was handled, and all this other stuff. And we ended up talking. It was the best conversation we have ever had in my life, and we talked for 3 hours. It was amazing, and I left there I can't wait to see my grandma again.
Yeah. It's wild, right? And all from that little you know what, I'm going to take this.
I'm just going to take it. And if she decided she didn't want to go with it, I would have just had the normal half hour with her that I would have. But I understand my grandma much more now because I decided to just open it and just see where she took it.
Sure.
So.
Well, and you discover things about yourself in those conversations too. That's why I find them so exhilarating for me. It's I want to crack you open, but by means of doing that, I'm also going to keep cracking myself open. Right? We're going to find a lot of parallels. We're going to find a lot of things we can patch together.
Learn more about yourself.
100%. Yeah.
Which is what it's all about.
It's paramount.
And then it was funny this morning. I'm driving Chelsea because the car's. Everybody's having car trouble right now.
Woke up with a flat tire.
And I picked her up at 7 o'clock this morning, and the moon was still out, and it was red, and it was beautiful. And we're driving, and Chelsea's like, "Oh, look at the moon," and I'm like, "It is something." And I didn't search for anything deeper. It was just a cool moment in time to be present and see the moon at 7 or whatever it was this morning, right? But it's funny how you can crack open anything you want, but it's also okay to just enjoy the thing.
Yeah.
Why do I enjoy Monster? Why do I enjoy Monster Energy drinks so much? I don't feel the energy anymore from them.
Yeah.
But I really like the taste, and it's something I look forward to getting up out of bed every day.
Sure.
So it helps me formulate my habits because I have that.
Yeah,
in reserve.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting, but it's funny, right? Because those little moments like that of I think that's so important what you did with your grandma, because something like that, your brother, that linchpin that tied you guys together, in that sense of how much were you guys independently carrying because of that, right? How much guilt your grandma had because of she felt like she could have done more. Maybe decisions you've made in your life or done that it's because you heard your brother crying himself to sleep every night. You felt like you couldn't do anything about it.
exactly.
Right? It's that it's little moments like that have a big effect on people.
The shoelace effect, right?
The shoelace effect, shoelace moments. Yeah, I love stuff. I live for stuff like that.
And it was that conversation, I learned more about myself than I did about my grandma. And I learned a shitload about my grandma.
100%.
During that, you know,
That's
like,
what happens.
I'm a huge nerd. I always loved comic books, and I always loved sci-fi and fantasy and all that stuff. And I know that is because my brother, who was legally blind, taught me how to read better because I was I couldn't read in public. Could not read.
Fascinating.
So he had a telescopic lens. It was like 4 inches long, and he could put it right on the book, and he could see the word.
Wow.
And so he would read books like that, and he would have print on his nose all the time because my brother read constantly. He would always have the book would rub off on his nose, right? Because he's this close to it.
That's why.
And so I think that's
what a powerful image.
Yeah, and so that's why I developed this love for sci-fi, comic books, all that shit, because those are the books that he had, and I would read them aloud to him, and he would help me sound out the word. Like, I couldn't spell permanently today, you know? So, a lot of good it did. No, I'm just kidding. But it's so funny that those little moments, right, that kind of shape you.
Like, think about what everything you just described, right? Those moments with your brother, you reading to him with the ink on his nose. It's a poem, my man.
Yeah, right? It's,
right? It's all poetry. It's all art.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's beautiful.
So it was
amazing imagery.
It's just really those conversations that you can have with people if you just try.
Yeah.
You know?
And realize it's not that scary.
It's not.
At the end of this, we're both going to be human beings, and we're probably going to be better human beings after. Right?
But that's something that I think in society, John and I covered this in one of the podcasts with Sam, I think, was the ab culture.
Yeah, sure.
It's crazy.
Sure.
You know, like everything's so superficial. And that's, these people make money just doing dumb shit and being superficial, you know, like, and it's just like, how do we pull out of that, you know, and
yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, I fall victim to that myself.
Well, I do too.
You know, I think we all do. Yeah. It's like, you know, as quote unquote deep as I may seem, I tell plenty of 3 days a week. I wake up, look at myself in the mirror, and be like, I can't fucking see my abs today. I'm a worthless person. You know what I mean? It's absurd, right? But it's all conditioning, right? It's like it's from the magazines. It's from like everything that's been drilled. It's this culture that we've built of like. But I think the thing is, like my saying I say all the time is that times change, people don't.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's a human thing, right?
Yeah. Look at the Greek statues.
Yeah.
From ancient Greece.
Right.
They're carved up. They're all jacked.
Yeah.
You know.
And
it's always been a thing.
I think it's it's all
That's very true.
Yeah.
100%. Your current cultural situation, but the theme is the same. Like, I mean, in like a long time ago, when you know the royalty, they would be fat and they would be looked at as like beautiful because they had the money to be able to afford the food.
They also controlled the conversation.
And
right. So it's like when one of the fat kings was like, no, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's
okay,
that's my liege.
Right, yeah, I guess that's beautiful now. Because if it's not, he's going to cut my head off.
Right, yeah. Right? I'm not going to make it through this.
But that's a lot of what life is, too. Right?
Yeah.
It's like the reinforced behavior, like that fear-based.
From this power structure
100%, yeah. Absolutely.
It's crazy stuff.
It's interesting stuff, isn't it?
It is, man. I could go all day. But,
it's good stuff.
So, tell us again, like, we can find the book on Amazon.
Amazon, yeah. It's called Permanently for Now. Sounds a lot deeper than it is.
Well, I mean, I think that's objective.
100%. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Permanently for Now, Bobby Brooks.
Or subjective. No, subjective. That's
we just
Yeah.
Permanently for Now. It's on Amazon.
And then if people want to get a hold of you, where can they find it?
On Instagram.
Okay.
Bobby Brooks 248.
Okay.
I also have another pseudonym Instagram that I'm not going to share the name of. Maybe someone will figure it out.
Okay.
That I post stuff. I post a little more like controversial poems.
Really?
Quotes.
But we'd have to find it. It's like
it would not be hard to find.
It's an easy
It wouldn't be hard to find.
Okay.
Just because there's not many followers and one of them's me and the other one's but not even controversial. It's just stuff that maybe like maybe I'm taking a chance on that I don't want anyone to know I'm writing it right now, just for fun, you know.
Cool.
But yeah, at Bobby Brooks 248.
You did a spoken word thing too, right?
Yeah, I have a couple spoken word videos on YouTube.
Okay.
All of of which were recorded when I was living in LA, which was a different time in my life. So it's
gotcha.
I think they're good pieces. They're just kind of
Different.
funny vibes because I recorded a rap album when I lived in LA. I've released 2 EPs.
Well, Charles, give us those. Where can we still find
You can't
those?
listen
Find
to.
those.
One of them you can listen to. I recorded.
Ultra rare.
Yeah, one of them I think's okay. I did it with my buddy. It's more of like an R&B feel. It's on YouTube and SoundCloud. But then I released a rap album. It was really funny. I was living in downtown LA with 9 black guys in an apartment downtown LA, and
That's a ton of people.
yeah, it was hilarious.
How many bedrooms?
2. It was really funny. It was me and my buddy, and 9 black guys. They were vegans and flat earthers. I believe
Wow.
So we had amazing conversations. It was just 2 of the greatest months of my life. It was hilarious.
Flat earthers
But
too.
but I was writing poetry inside
Yeah.
and stuff, and 4 of them were rappers.
Okay.
2 were producers, and the other 2 guys. Does that math work out? I don't know. But, 2 of them were also
I'm
actors.
about as good at math as I am at reading. You
Yeah.
think as a personal trainer, I'd be really good at counting by 1s and 2s?
Absolutely, math is not my thing.
Not true.
But I bring that up because 4 of them were rappers, and I would read my poetry and stuff like that, and they were like, "Dude, you just put this to a beat."
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, all right, cool. I never really
Try
thought of myself like I could rap before, because a lot of my spoken word stuff, I guess, has a little more hip hop flair to it. So they kind of encouraged me to like, dude, try it out. Like, we'll give you some beats and stuff like that. So I ended up coming back to Michigan and recording a 6-song EP, which is kind of like a spoken word rap EP. It's honestly terrible. It's not.
But people want to see your process, which some people might now.
Yeah.
That would be cool for them to go
I
look
think
up.
some of the lyrics and I think some of the words are good. The music is not. And it doesn't match up well. And
But
but it was fun.
You were evolving, right?
Yeah, and I was 21.
Yeah.
You know? But I thought, so there was a period of my life that I was convinced, or I thought I was a rapper.
Which would have been an interesting time.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It was an interesting time. But no, it was fun. Yeah, I mean, it was cool. It was a cool creative process and stuff like that. But so you can't hear that anymore.
Okay.
Took that off.
Okay.
But I have some spoken word videos out on YouTube.
Okay.
Bobby Brooks. I mean, you might be able to find him. I don't know.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of. Actually, all 3 of those poems that I performed are in this book.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. This is kind of cool.
So Bobby Brooks, permanently for now.
Permanently for now.
Available on Amazon. Anywhere else?
No, not yet.
Okay.
No.
Great, man.
Ebook coming soon too.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dude, we appreciate you so much for
Yeah,
thanks for
taking
having
some
me.
time out
This
of
is
your day
so
and
fun.
coming by,
Fun.
and then we'll have to get you on again for a longer format one where we can talk like
I love it.
all crazy shit.
I love it. We can talk about anything. I love it. There's
Yeah.
deeper meanings, everything. We can dive into everything.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I
Well, dude,
appreciate it, guys.
Thanks so much
Thank
for coming
you.
by.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Boom.
There we go.
So that's about hour 20.
Cool. I don't
Hour
know if that
20?
was okay.
What's that?
That's hour 55.
Well, I ran it straight.
Gotcha.
So we have 38 minutes on there
Gotcha.
of the one.
Okay.
And then we can just touch that one up because I know
Yeah.
2 hours is our limit today, but
Gotcha.
Is that okay that I said